what does like Web3 mean? Do you even use that term? And can you kind of place it for us in terms of what was previous to what we're experiencing now?
So Web 1 is the first version of the internet, and to really make it super simple, it was more of a read only internet with basically the information being a few people creating the content and people consuming it, but without interacting with it per se. And it was mainly originally targeting internet was more used by business because at that time the cost of having access to internet doesn't make sense for the large majority of the population. And then we had Web 2. I think it was around 2004 2005, and this is really when we entered the era of the beginning of people first internet being more accessible to everyone, and having like social media and people really moving away from the static internet. And this is really, I think, the key things of Web 2 is still, because we are still in Web 2, maybe that's relevant to mention, is really the rise of social media. But and I think another important point, because that then goes into why people are looking towards Web3, is also the use of data. Like, because now people are using the internet and interacting with the internet in Web 2, there's insane amount of data that is being created and leveraged, and mainly leveraged by centralized power. Like if you go back into the social media front, you have if you are a content creator, you are extremely dependent on this centralized platform that you are using. They are controlling the data the data that you're creating, the data of the people that are watching your content, and even as an individual user of the internet, that is the case. And I think when people are starting to look at Web3 as, with again this value that we mention over and over again, which is decentralization, disintermediation, and in this case also data sovereignty. And to go into Web3, there are a number of technologies that are being used to build Web3 on. So blockchain is one of them, and this is why Web3 and blockchain are very intertwined in people's mind and in things. But there's also the semantic web, that is one of the technology that is being used to build on what we want Web3 to be. But it's really, again, Web3 is this idea of using the internet the way you want, how you want it, and having control over how you use the internet and whatever result of you using internet, I would say.
That's awesome, because the evolution of the internet has played out in our lifetimes from for a lot of us from
Yes.
Web 1 to Web 3. What we're seeing is emerging this ability to do web based activities in a different way, which is what I think captured us in the blockchain space, our imagination, that when you think about your how your data is being used now, and it's data about me being used to sell to me, and I am out of the loop in that in terms of the kind of the positive incentives in data sovereignty. The ability to have ownership of your data again is where we're entering a time where we're capable of doing that. And now the question is, now that the technology exists, how do we scale it so that it can compete in those same realms as Web 2
Yep.
platforms that are still dominating the space, still have the billions of users? It's just, we
Yeah.
know the genie is out of the box.